Hello, welcome to episode 41 of Faith, Hope, and Friends. My name is Marvina, and I'm your host today. My regular partner in crime, Renee, is not with us today. However, I do have a special guest with us today. Her name is Arlesia. She happens to be my youngest daughter. Hello, Arlesia.
Hi.
Welcome to Faith, Hope, and Friends. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So today's podcast is entitled Faith Across the Generations. And it's just a conversation on some of the differences, similarities in our in our faith journey and being on this faith journey, the differences in some similarities maybe between the generations. I'm going to ask Arlesia a few questions and we'll discuss a little bit and we'll go from there. So Arlesia, how was your faith introduced to you?
By my parents, grandparents, and grandmothers, both of them on my dad's side and my mom's side.
So your great-grand?
Yes, my bad. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, guys.
And how has it evolved as you've grown older?
I've come to understand Christ for myself.
Okay.
And God has blessed me in ways, little ways and big ways. Like, two examples, like I was I guess some would say rambunctious child. I was just active really.
Very.
And so there was a lot of times where I was, I guess you would say, mischievous, and there are consequences. Well, God blessed me not to get the consequences that my parents thought I should have gotten.
Okay.
But with God, I guess God talked to them. Not only that, it also helped my mom start working with the youth because I was a energetic kid and she knew that maybe a lot of adults wouldn't want to take the time to deal with me and maybe understand me with it when it came within the church. My mom used that and said, okay, I'm gonna be over the youth to show the youth this is what it looks like praising God, and also to make sure her child is getting treated fairly. And I think that was by the grace of God that he used what could be taken for bad for good.
Okay. So you saw that as an example in your life?
Yes.
As an answer to prayer or faith, or I'm
yeah
trying to understand.
Okay.
How did me working with the youth, how was that
an
answer to your prayer?
I would say it was an answer to my prayer because I would pray to God and ask God, take the energy and people not having patience with me away from me and put something in me that will make adults see, okay, I can have patience with her, you know? And God used it as another way for my mom to have patience with me and with kids within the church, you know? And then another example, Slide Park. When I was in 6th grade, I attended Slide Park, and before I attended Slide Park, this is something that I had heard about all through elementary. My mom got to go, my sister, and they told me good stories from when they went. My mom actually met some really good friends from Slide Park that she is still friends with today. And I think that is amazing and cool. So I wanted those same memories. And so I said, okay, I got to get to Slide Park. Well, 6th grade came around and Slide Park was coming up. And my dad had said I might not be able to go because him and my mom didn't have the money to pay for it. So I was sad, but then I remember my mom said, pray. And if you pray and work behind your prayer, God will give you the desires of your heart. So that's what I did. I prayed. And then the way I put work behind my prayer then was the teacher has said, anybody whose parents is skeptical, whose parents who is skeptical about sending their kids a slide park, here's a DVD. That's when DVDs were out. Here's a DVD, and your parents can watch it, and it gives more of the educational. It shows all the slide park because slide park has changed since my mom's generation. So my mom and dad saw the DVD. The teacher let me borrow it. My mom and dad saw it, and they surprised me not too long before Slide Park and said, I'll be going to Slide Park. So I was super excited, and I give God thanks because he answered my prayers.
Okay. All right. And that's a good example because God does hear our prayers. I thoroughly believe that. If we don't believe that, then we probably need to look at why we believe what we believe, but great example. Thank you. Okay, question number 2. How do you think your generation's relationship with faith differs from my generation's? Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to mention this. So I'm Generation X, and Arlesia is the Millennial generation. I'll let her explain the years because she's the fact person. So Generation X covers what years, Arlesia?
1964 to 1980.
Okay, and Millennial?
1981 to 1996.
So if you were born within those years, you would be either of the Generation X generation, which is me, which is a great generation, or Millennial generation,
which is also a great generation too.
It is.
Pros and cons,
It is. Okay, so back to our regular program. So question number 2, how do you think your generation's relationship with faith differs from my generation?
I think the millennial generation is more of an individual base, and the X generation focused a lot more so on the community base.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is I feel that my generation understood the concept early on, that your faith is a personal journey. And yes, you can have community based, but you also have to have individual based, because you are the only one that can do the work for you to get yourself to heaven, not nobody else for you. And I think my mom's generation, I think they were so focused on you have to have faith as a community and not an individual as well. And it comes with a balance, individual and community. But I also think that my mom's generation was also more into the word, and I think they understood more of, not understood, but I think they were more traditional. And my generation was more non-traditional. From my experiences, a lot of the churches that I've been to, where the pastor is either my generation or the deacons or the people that's higher up in the church, a lot of them consider themselves non-denomination, when a lot of my mom's generation consider themselves Baptist
or other denominations.
Yeah, or other denominations like
Identify.
Pentecostal. Yeah.
So you believe you think that Generation X, my generation, we identified more so with a denomination, a faith denomination,
Yes.
versus non-denominational, not having a denomination, not belonging to a certain denomination, but having your own, just having an individual relationship.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I do think I Generation X and the generations before us, I believe we all still had still have our individual relationships, but I think the way we practice maybe our faith may have been on more of a communal basis, with attending church, actually attending a brick and mortar church more often. Whereas now I believe because of technology and yes, in the pandemic and things like that, a lot of people, including myself, like to may attend church online or Bible studies online. So I can see that. So when you say that you believe you guys understood the I'm sorry. I thought I saw a little caterpillar on my tomato plant over there, and I kind of got off focus. That happens with even when Renee is here too, right? Anyway, so when you say that you believe that you understood the concept at an earlier age, what do you mean? What are you?
What I mean by that is I feel that at an earlier age, we focused more on the individual, meaning even though you might not see us in church for months at a time, or maybe a year or weeks at a time, that does not mean that we have forgotten our faith, or that does not mean that we're not practicing Christianity. Okay. I feel that with the X generation, I felt that a good amount of them felt that, oh, if they didn't see you attend church for weeks or a year or a month, then they automatically take that as, oh, you don't practice your faith anymore. You're not living according to the word, when that's not true.
Okay. So our next question, and it kind of builds on our last question. How do you see faith being practiced differently within your generation compared to the generations before you?
I would say my generation, I feel that we are not so traditional.
Okay.
When it comes to church, as far as the way we do things, I feel that the generation before me, they were so traditional and did everything a certain way, and it had to be that way or no way, when I feel like my generation is more accommodating.
Okay. All right. And I think that tradition is good. I think that sometimes the millennial generation, I think that sometimes I do believe that there is a difference between the generations regarding tradition and tradition in our faith walk. I do believe that there is tradition is a great thing. You know, it could be either, but there are benefits to tradition. And I think my personal opinion is it appears, or it seems to me, that sometimes with the millennial generation, you guys don't respect tradition as much. And not even that, it's almost like we get dinged for having tradition and following certain traditions. Then I think that sometimes you guys don't always fully understand the reason why we do what we do. Yeah. And so that's that.
Okay.
I do think that I think that you guys, the millennial generation, is more likely to see faith as a deeply personal journey versus just doing it alone by you all self, versus the generations before us. We are very more communal. And I do think that our faith is practiced more so on a community basis, which is also, I think that it's good because you are able to be encouraged by others. You are able to see hope. You can see by other people sharing their testimony. You're able to see how God, has brought them out. So
that's why it's good to have a balance between community and individual, like I had said before.
Yes. Yeah. I read something that said as I stated, that you guys may see faith more as deeply personal, and it may not always align with traditional religious institution. And I think that you guys are. It seems like the millennial generation is more into meditation and exploring spiritual practices from different cultures, in addition to instead of just the religious rituals. How do you, and is that, do you think that's all, that is a good thing, opening yourself up to other beliefs and um seeing how other people may practice their spirituality or
Um, that is a good question. I personally don't think you should open yourself up to other beliefs as far as doing what they do. Now, you can learn about other beliefs, but I do think that with other beliefs, they do the things that they do because there's more behind it than just what we know. And since we're not that belief, whatever belief that may be, we might not know all the ins and outs of it, just like other beliefs don't know the ins and outs of Christianity and why we practice the way we do. I think you just got to be careful about what you open up yourself to. Now, I do think meditation, I don't see anything wrong with meditation or anything like that. But when it comes to other stuff, like when people be reading people and stuff like that, I personally think that should be left alone. Um, because I do think that's black magic, but at the same time, I'm also a believer of talking to God about everything and about what you feel and stuff like that, because no telling what God might tell you, no telling how God will speak to you different than he speaks to somebody else. So I really can't judge on that. That's why I also say that your faith is a personal journey, because what might be for somebody else might not be for you. What might be for you might not be for somebody else.
Okay. And I do agree. I do think your faith is a personal journey, but I also believe that the basis of our faith is based on principles that are in the Bible. And I believe that there are certain things that we should not do. God clearly tells us not to do. So it's not just a personal preference thing. It's also a thing with doing what God instructs us to do and not doing what God not doing what God instructs us to not do. I'll leave it there. Don't want to get too deep here. So question number 4. How do you think different generations can learn from each other when it comes to faith?
One of the ways I think they can learn from each other is going back to some of like the other questions, like my mom said, community based. I feel that's how you learn, because then you have other people around you that's like minded. You guys can talk. The younger generation can talk to the older generation and ask the older generation, okay, why do you guys practice like this? The older generation can ask the younger generation the same question. And I think they can feed off of each other, and they can give each other kind of like, I shouldn't say the do's and don'ts, but maybe this might work. Like, for an example, a lot of the older generation, let me not say a lot, but some of them feel that if you're not in church 2 hours or longer, then are you really getting the word? When you have some of the millennials that feel you don't got to be in church for no 2 hours, you could be in church for 30 minutes and still receive the word. And me personally, I like 30 minutes just because I can remember more of what was said versus 2 hours. It's harder for me to remember what was all said in 2 hours versus 30 minutes. Um, so yeah, I think just talking to each other as a generation and being open to what each generation has to say. Don't automatically knock it, you know?
Mhm.
Well, that's what I think.
I do believe that from older generations, we can learn the importance of tradition, consistency, and community. I believe that
And
as
contrast.
we grow older, if the Lord allows us to reach an older age, I believe there's also certain wisdom that comes. So I do think that it is important for younger people to speak, to interact with older people, and not on just a surface level, but to actually get to know them and get to know, talk to them about their beliefs and why they believe what they believe, why they practice some of the traditions that they practice. I also think that it's great for older people to speak with the younger generation, to bring a fresh perspective on our faith and on our faith journey, to also revitalize some of our faith traditions, and we learn, and we continue to learn from each other. I don't think we ever get to a place where we know it all. I think
Exactly.
that once God is done with us learning, that is when we transition to our next home, which is hopefully heaven.
Yes.
So yes, I agree with you. I think that we can learn a lot from each other. So, and our final question, what advice would you give the younger generation about maintaining and nurturing their faith in today's world?
Okay, so coming from me, because I'm a, oh, okay, I would tell them, have other Christians around you, like in your friend group, because that is very important. Also, go to church. It's not all the time. Sometimes go to church online, go to Bible study, and not just church and Bible study. Go to other church events, because church can really be fun, honestly. I think that some people take church as boring when you have to look past the, oh, on Sunday, sitting there hearing the preacher preach, or on Wednesdays for Bible study, hearing the preacher preach. I think when you go to church and to church functions, then you meet other people and you guys can become really great friends. Another example, my mother. Um, so I've been a Christian since I was born for as long as I can remember. And my mother, which I was totally shocked when she was younger, part of her life, she was not. And so that shocked me when I asked her the question. Like, I remember that day vividly. I didn't believe her at first. Like, I was like, nah, you're playing, because her face was so, um, I don't know how to put it, but she has so much faith that you would have thought that's how she grew up her whole life. And so we always went to church, and my mom has friends from all walks of life, but the church friends that I've seen her have, she literally has had those friends for years. And I know this might be small to some of you guys, but to me, this is big. From what I've known, they never had confrontation, arguments, or anything. They and her friends always has welcomed us with open arms. She's always welcomed their family. And just to see her move through the friendships with Christianity, I've seen the friendships grow. um like I was saying, my mom helped with the youth. She had friends who was helping my mom and dad with the youth, so it wasn't just them. We would do youth retreats, shut-ins, and all that was because my mother had Christian friends who were on the same headspace as her, so they were able to come together as one and create these Christian fun experiences for my generation and the millennial Z's, and for the generations after the millennial Z's. So yeah.
Okay. And that wasn't even rehearsed, guys. Like, I didn't even tell her to say that. Thank you for that, Alicia. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome.
And it's good to know that as a parent and as someone who a little older, that, you know, our life, the way we lead our life in front of others, it does matter. And that we're able to be a witness to others and encourage them just by living our daily lives. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Ultimately, while the essence of faith may remain consistent, providing hope, guidance, and a sense of purpose, the way it is experienced, practiced, and expressed has evolved significantly across the generations. And I do think that we should be open to change. We should be open to the possibilities of change, because that means our walk can only get better. I think sometimes we're afraid, whether we're from a younger generation or an older generation. I think that sometimes we're afraid of change. And I think that many times we should more so embrace it. I encourage each of you to reflect on your own faith journey and to encourage conversations with younger relatives that may be in your family, friends, older relatives, older friends and family. I encourage you to speak with them about their faith journey, and just talk to them. You would probably be amazed with a lot of the things that people have overcome or have even experienced in their life. I think that God designs us to connect to it, to connect to others. And I believe that we bless each other just with our patience a lot of times. So until our next episode, we thank you for joining us. And until next time.
All right. Bye, everybody.